Hey guys, in this video we're doing a mobility training and primal movement workout.
Usually I like to start from the bottom up or the top down, but today we're going to do a little bit of a mixture because we are probably very sedentary right now, so we probably want to be getting up and down as much as possible. To begin with, we're going to work on wrist mobility.
Depending on the soreness of your wrists, we're going to do 30 seconds to 4 minutes, rocking back and forward with your elbows nice and straight. We're also going to bring the wrists together and go in circles clockwise and anti-clockwise.
So for the wrist pails and rails, if you're quite stiff, then you're going to want to hold the starting position for 2 minutes to begin with. If you're hypermobile, you probably aren't going to need any of that, so you can go straight away into the pails and rails. So we're going to begin with your wrists on the ground. Flail your fingers out a little bit and just get to a point where you feel a minor stretch, but you're not in extreme pain, so don't push it too far to begin with. If you've never done pails and rails before on your wrists, I would recommend going 50 to 75% of maximum contraction. If you have done them before, go ahead and go all 100% effort. So we're going to keep your elbows nice and straight. And for the first contraction, we're going to be trying to do this motion with our hand into the ground, so pushing into the ground. And for the second contraction, we're going to be pulling the wrists up as much as possible using just our muscles. So we're going to go for 10 seconds pushing into the ground. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then other direction, pulling them up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. At this point you should be getting cramping all around here. And then pushing into the ground, and that's when you feel cramping here. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and again pulling up. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and last round pushing down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and pulling up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that should be quite crampy, so after that just slightly roll your wrists around and be aware that they are going to be a little bit tender for about a minute.
Next we're going over ankle cars. We're going to go for 5 to 10 rotations per ankle.
Okay, so usually I like to use a band for this, but because some of you might not have one, I'm going to show you a body weight variation. Okay, so you want your body to stay nice and straight. The only thing you're going to be moving is your feet. So we're going to dorsiflex as much as we possibly can. The muscles at the front of your shins should start burning up. And we're going to do this for reps, followed by an isometric hold. So we're going to go for 10 to 15 reps, depending on how much you need to feel that burn. And then once it does start burning, we're going to do an isometric contraction, meaning you're going to pull your toes up as much as you physically can, and you're going to concentrate on activating that muscle.
So this exercise is particularly important if you are a runner or someone who walks a lot. It's often an area of the body we don't pay much attention to, but it is also something that will help you reduce the likelihood of getting shin splints in the future.
So now that's starting to burn up for me. I'm just going to pull up as much as I can, and that is now really burning. I'm going to hold that for 10 seconds. Looks super cool, doesn't it? Okay. Alright, so for me, that burnt up like crazy. If it's not going that much for you, try to go for another 2 to 3 rounds. Okay, so next we're going to do hip cars in the kudruk position. And if you guys are confused by any of these exercises, I'm going to add links in the description below so that you can watch an in-depth tutorial. Okay, so to begin with, we're going to start with our knees underneath our hips and our hands underneath our shoulders. Can you see my back?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We're going to want our back to not move around too much when we're doing this, so that's your main focus for the movement, is just to make sure your back doesn't move. You're going to squeeze your tummy, pull your belly button up to the spine so that you're not ending up moving your back. We're going to bring the knee up as far as possible without the back moving, so obviously I could bring it further, but my back moves, so this is where I'm going to stop. Then I'm coming up to the side with my knee. I'm going to imagine I'm lifting my little toe and my heel up while I rotate my knee around an imaginary bollard over there. And then I'm in the hip extension position, trying to keep my back nice and straight, and I'm coming back into the middle. From here I'm going to reverse the movement. And what you should feel the most is your core really burning up and your hips going through their full range of motion. Again, with this, we're trying to stay really nice and slow. And we're going to be doing 4 reps, forward and back being 1.
So at the moment we're still at the warm-up phase of our workout, so don't worry if you're not completely warm yet. You should be in about 5 minutes time.
That's useful. You can put it back.
Remember, if you find this hard, feel free to go less on range just so you get the control in your hips and core so they don't move around. Don't worry so much if the range is quite limited at the moment. If it's the first time that you're doing this, it does take a few weeks to get used to before your range starts to increase.
Okay, so for the next one, we're going to use a chair and we're going to do 3 stances of calf raises. So we're going to start with the ballerina stance, with your feet turned out as much as you can. And you're going to come up to your toes as much as possible, squeeze your calves, keeping your knees relatively straight. And we're going to go for 15 reps, followed by a 10-second isometric hold. The next one, we're going to go into a pigeon foot stance, and we're doing the same thing. Again, 15 reps and a 10-second isometric hold.
Lastly, we're doing feet together, imagining that there's something between your heels that you're pressing together. The next two variations of exercises can be known to be advanced, so if you have sore knees or feet, feel free to skip these next two. Holding onto something, we're going to squat down low with the heels remaining high so that you're on your tiptoes. We're going to do between 5 to 10 reps. Next, we're moving on to the feet pointing outwards with the heels remaining high as you squat up and down. Again, 3 to 5 reps to see if you're comfortable, and if you feel okay with it, we're going to do 2 sets of these.
This exercise is for spinal and pelvic control, and we're using the band to help you get stronger with each segment. Alright, so if you're a crazy dog lady, this works just fine. Alright, so this is where you're going to need a band. If you don't have a band, you can just use a belt because we're just using this for feedback. So, well, I say feedback, but it does actually provide a little bit of resistance to push into, so you can pull it a little bit. We're going to, no, I need that, Rex, I need that, buddy, don't eat it. You can use a belt if you don't have one, so we're going to put it around your back. You're going to sit in a kneeling position, and you're going to put a little bit of tension on it and bring your hands and push them down onto your legs. From here, we're going to go into flexion and extension while squeezing your tummy as much as you can. That could sound a little bit counterintuitive, but as long as you're putting your belly button up to your spine and controlling the movement, that's what we're aiming for. Okay, so next we're doing controlled articular rotations for your scapula. We're going to start kneeling, tuck the hips under, squeeze the glutes and push the ribs down. You're going to have your hands at shoulder width, and you're going to go as far forward as you can, as far up, as far back, and down. And the next version of that, we're going to do scapular cars on the ground. So we're going to be pushing the ground away, coming forward, bring the scapula down, bringing them together, and then up towards your ears.
Try to keep your elbows straight for the whole exercise.
If you found that hard, we're just going to stick to the easy one and we're going to do a kneeling scapular press. So you're just going together with your scapula and are pushing the ground away and pushing your scapula apart. And now just imagine these muscles here engaging as you're pushing away and keeping your elbows nice and straight as you're bringing your scapula together.
Try to also keep your scapula depressed and avoid shrugging.
Next we're doing banded crab walks. We're going to place the band under your feet, give it a little bit of tension, and we're going to cross the band. You're going to pin your shoulders back and down so that you're not shrugging over like this. You're going to have a tiny bend in your knees and a nice flat back with your hips tilted backwards, not like this. And we're going to push to the side on the spot, pushing your knees outwards, so you're thinking knees out each time. Also, you're going to be squeezing your tummy so that you're not using your body to, actually don't even know how to do that wrong anymore, but it's quite easy in the beginning to use your body to assist. From the front, like this. And we're going to do this until your glutes burn up. So you should feel around here burning up. What you shouldn't feel is here burning up. If you are, then it probably you're too far forward, or you need to work on your hip flexors because they're too overactive. Another area where people get confused is they're driving through the wrong leg, so make sure you're driving off to this leg and you're putting the power through that leg as you go to the side. Hope that makes sense. So next we're doing a banded hip hinge. You're going to want to put your band onto a banister, or you could use a door frame. You're going to put the band around your hips and you're going to squeeze your tummy, and when you get a stretch in the hamstrings and glutes, that's when you're going to know that's your cue to come back up. And we're going to keep the back nice and straight. So this is just for those of you that have not got accustomed to a hip hinge movement yet, but if you are used to it, then instead, I'm just going to skip that. And using the band, we're going to place it around the feet and around the shoulders, and we're going to do a banded good morning hip hinge movement. And we're going to go for 10 reps and 2 sets. So moving on, we're going to go for Romanian deadlifts. If you've never done them before, we're going to do them without the band. And you're going to imagine that you're standing on this one foot with a little bit of an arch coming in, so you're squeezing your big toe into the ground. There's going to be a little bend in this knee, and you're going to now hip hinge like you did before with this leg, and aim to touch the ground with the opposite hand. Maintaining a nice straight back, and bending this knee as much as you need in order to reach the ground. So if you're here and you're struggling, just bend the knee a bit more and it'll be easier. And on the way up, just remember squeezing the glute and the hamstring to come back up.
So we're going to do approximately 10 reps per leg in order to get comfortable with the movement.
If you have a band, we're going to place it under the foot. Get down and get a little bit extra tension on it because it's not particularly heavy. Squeeze your tummy because this is going to be pulling you down quite hard. And the exact same, but with the band pulling you down. Really nice and slow on the way down because it's quite easy to get tugged by the band.
Again, we're doing 10 reps per leg for approximately 2 to 3 sets. Next, we're going to learn some primal movement flows. Sit down with one foot under the other knee. Use your arms to help propel you forwards as you squeeze the back glute. You should end up in a hip flexor stretch at the top, trying not to hyperextend the back. We're going to do 4 reps per side, 2 to 3 sets. Next, we're going to link in hollow rocks with this exercise. If you haven't done hollow rocks before, I'm going to link an exercise tutorial in the comments below so you can go through that. In the hollow position, you're going to rock back while maintaining core control. What you're going to do is keep your ribs down, and using your arms, you're going to propel yourself forward just like before, this time alternating legs. On the way down from the hollow rock, you're going to tuck one leg under so you end up with your foot under your knee again. We're going to play around with this variation for 2 to 3 sets. Rep range will be dependent on when you get tired and lose form. Next, we're moving on to quadruped hovers. Start with your hands underneath your shoulders and knees underneath your hips. Using your core, we're going to lift up and just hover over the ground for a second before coming back down for each rep. We're going for a total of 8 reps and 2 sets. From the same starting position, we're now going to bring one arm up as we weave the other leg through. You're going to need to focus a lot on your core control and balance here. Remember to push the ground away and engage the scapula while keeping a nice straight elbow when using the hand that is on the ground. It helps to pull the other arm into your body so that the center of gravity is in the middle. Again, we're practicing this for 2 sets and as many reps as you have control over. Next, we're doing half frog internal rotations. Hip internal rotation muscles are commonly underdeveloped in modern humans. Working your hip internal rotation prevents hip joint damage over time and contributes to a better squat, as well as a stronger direction change and many more vital movement skills. To begin, lay flat on the ground and place one knee in line with your hip. You're going to bring the heel up as high as you can without wiggling the hips or moving the trunk. It helps to think of bringing the little toes out at the same time. We're going to do 10 to 15 reps per leg with a 10-second isometric hold on the last rep. We're going to go for 2 sets total, but feel free to add an extra set to make it a total of 3 sets if you feel like you're not quite getting the burn yet. During the isometric hold, try to concentrate as hard as possible, bringing the heel up as high as you possibly can. At this point, you should be getting a deep, muscular burn inside your hip on the outside of the glute. Next, we're doing a reverse lunge and curtsy lunge combination. While keeping the knee in line with our heel, we're going to do a reverse lunge followed by a curtsy lunge. You're going to pay particular attention to keep your hips in line with each other so they are not tilting too far, so continue to point them forwards. We're going to do a total of 8 lunges of each variation per side, meaning 16 reps total. We're going to go for a total of 2 sets per leg. If you find this easy, you could use a band or some dumbbells. By the end of the 16 reps, your posterior chain should be activated and your glutes should be burning up. If you have a resistance band, you can simply place it under the foot to gain resistance. If you don't have a band but you have weights, you can simply place the weights in your hands and do exactly the same motion as I'm doing here with the band, but having the weights in front of you. This combination with extra weight or resistance should really start to burn up. If your glutes and legs are not burning up yet, simply pause the video and do another 1 to 2 extra sets per leg. Next, we're doing a down dog to a quadruped squat combination. Start with your hands underneath your shoulders and brace the core. You can always tuck the hips under and squeeze the glutes if you're worried about hyperextending the back. From here, we're lifting the hips up as high as possible, even if it means slightly bending your knees. At the same time, push the ground away, and this is the down dog position. From here, we're going back into the plank position, making sure that your hips do not go lower than your shoulders. From here, we're driving back and bending the knees to get into the squat position. Imagine you're tucking the knees into the shoulders by compressing the core and engaging the hip flexors. Now that you've learnt the movement, we're going to do as many reps as you can with good form. When you're tired, have a little rest and we're going to do another 1 to 2 sets. Next, we're doing a kneeling side plank crunch. To begin, get into a kneeling side plank, keeping the hip high and reaching the arm and leg outwards. From here, we're going to crunch the knee and elbow together while keeping the hip high. You should feel the bottom glute kick in as you stabilize. We're going to go for 10 reps and 2 sets per side. One last set and we're going to be working on hip flexors next. Okay, so this next drill is particularly good for knee rehab as well as simply getting stronger hip flexors and working on your compression strength. We're going to start by hugging one leg and sitting upright. Then we're going to brace the core, squeeze the quad and lift the leg. Usually we're going to go for about 10-second hold, but if you can only manage 2 to 5 seconds, that's absolutely fine. We're just going to squeeze as hard as possible for 10 seconds. Next, you can grab any object, you can go lower than this if you like, and we're going to work on doing a quad isometric while going across the object and down. This again is completely dependent on your level, so you can start by attempting 4 reps, and if you want to push it, you can go for 10 to 12 reps. Here I'm going to go only for 1 set per leg, and then we're going to move on to standing hip flexor work. So with the next drill, we're going to stand on one foot, balancing while bringing the knee up as high as possible. From here, we're going to hold it without our hands helping for about 5 to 10 seconds per side. You're going to be using your hip flexors and your core quite a lot in order to do this. If you find this challenging, you can do one more set in order to get a total of 2 sets on this exercise. If you find it easy, we're going to move on to the next variation. Again, we're going to bring the knee up as high as possible and then straighten the leg, squeezing the quad as hard as possible while you're keeping the leg nice and straight for 5 to 10 seconds per side. Try to avoid tucking the hips under and bending the spine. You're going to try to keep your hips straight and your core nice and braced. Next, we're doing negative poor man leg extensions. Start with your knees underneath your hips and slightly bring your feet outwards. Squeeze your glutes and push your ribs down as hard as possible as you go backwards. The second you feel too much tension in the front of the legs and you're unable to control it, you're going to dip down, sit, and then hip hinge up again before doing another rep. Again, with these, we're going to listen to the body, so we're going to do between 4 and 10 negative reps. You can choose between 2 to 3 sets depending on the fatigue in your legs. Moving on, we're doing quadruped hip adduction hovers. Brace your core as you lift your foot in line with your hip as high as possible. You can hold this between 5 to 10 seconds per side. The side and top of your glute should begin to burn. We're going to do a total of 2 sets. We're going to do another hover now, but standing. So you're going to grab your foot, ideally the big toe with your fingers, and then you're going to straighten your leg out to the side. If this is too hard, you can use a box to place your leg on. We're first just doing 1 set to get your balance and get a passive stretch in. The next set is going to be completely controlled by your muscles. So now we're going to bring the foot up completely controlled by your muscles, and we're going to hover for 5 to 10 seconds per side. Again, if you find this too hard, feel free to use a box or something to put your foot on and then lift after that. The same muscles should be kicking in as when we were doing the quadruped version, hence we did it before to make it a bit easier to control the standing version. We're moving on to our last superset. We're going to get into quite a deep middle split hold. So make sure that you've got a sticky surface for your feet and you're not using socks on a slippery surface. From here, imagine you're squeezing your legs together like scissors, trying to close the gap between your legs and the ground. You're going to hold it for 10 seconds per stance. Once you've finished the 10 seconds, you're going to go a little bit lower if you can, and you're going to do it again, another 10-second hold. I hope you guys found that useful and enjoyed it. If you have any questions or want to get in touch, I'm going to link our website below in the description.